me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective.
Excited about today's topic. Now, let me tell you how it came about. This is maybe months ago when we had that first kind of like fair weather break. It was kind of decent outside. You all remember that? And so I'm outside. I'm in the front of my house, and I noticed this anthill. And it was actually about 3 anthills, and they were fairly big to be in my driveway, right? We got this drive in front of the house, and I'm like, man, and it's early, man. It's early in the year. You know, like the ants are already working. And so I sit back and I admire the drive. You know, I admire these anthills sitting there. And the landscapers had came by. They had seeded the yard, all that, you know, in preparation for spring. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to go ahead and get this watered. And so after having admired these beautiful anthills, like 3 of them, I mean, they were fairly big, fairly big early too, for that time of year. I forget about these anthills. Like I admired them. I watched the ants, and I shared this with you all before. I'll bring this back up, but I do my best to follow, whatever I learn in holy text, right? I do my absolute best. And one of the things I learned from the Quran, and I could be in error because I'm not a Muslim, but just in reading the Quran, one of the things it says is you do not hurt the ant. And my Islamic brothers and sisters, Muslim brothers and sisters, correct me if I'm wrong, but you do not hurt the ant. So I didn't touch the anthills. Okay, I didn't touch them. So I go to start watering the grass, and I forget. The ant hills are like right on the edge of, the grass. I go to water the grass, and, I water the grass. I'm satisfied with the grass, with the grass being watered. And when I come around to where the ant hills were before, I see that they have been devastated. Like, I did this. Like, this is my handiwork, right? And I'm like, oh, my goodness, man. I completely destroyed these anthills. And I give my wife would tell you, like, when it comes to nature, like, I do my best to, be reverent and not kill what I don't have to kill. I really do. And she'll tell you, if there's a spider in the house, she's like, man, it's a spider. You know how you hear that screech from all the way upstairs? You're like, man, somebody break into the house? You go upstairs, run upstairs. I look, man, it's a spider. It's a big spider, right? Man, I go and the spider's like, but then she demands that I take its life, right? There's a demand. Like, you gotta kill it. I'm like, hey, man, it might be another, kill it, right? So that's when I'm guilty, right? I'm like, all right, the queen has spoken, you must die, right? Now off with your head, whatever. Okay. But outside of that, I do my best to preserve the life of any animal, insect, etc. So I feel a certain kind of way about these anthills being devastated by my handiwork, right? Watering the grass. And so I look at the situation, and it's like they're washed away completely. And I see the ants already kind of moving around. So I just walk away and I go, oh man, that's my bad, as we do. Maybe it's about 2 days later. I'm walking around, just kind of looking at, looking at the grass. And the anthills are back. But here's the thing. They're not just back. And this is like in a matter of 24 to 48 hours. I can't remember exactly, right? But let's say 2 days at most. The anthills are back. And not only are they back, they're better. And so, and anybody who listens to the show on a regular basis, you already know. You're like, oh boy, this man went and started researching ants. Because I'm like, yo, this is like, I completely devastated these anthills. I mean, washed them away with water. 24 to 48 hours later, they're back. Ants are, I'm like, and so I have like all of a sudden this my appreciation for ants. Like, I mean, it just goes because I'm like, would I have done that? If someone had completely devastated my home, would I even have the emotional capacity to put it back together again that quickly? Like, bow, that quickly. So I got to know more about these fellas, right? I'm like, man, this is... Now, here's the thing. Then what happens as I'm looking at this, and this is why I say, you know, I have to give the creator his due. Because right away, Proverbs 6 drops into my mind. Proverbs 6:6. Anybody know that scripture? Proverbs 6:6. And by the way, if you're watching and you're listening, and you're not into the Bible, scriptures, things like that, let this before you like hang up, turn off the radio, come off Facebook like, this dude's about to preach. That's not what's about to happen. But let me say this. The man who wrote Proverbs is considered to be the wisest man of all time. Just wrap your mind around that. This is the wisest man of all time. And Proverbs in particular is a message that he wrote to his son, right? Wisdom, like just all wisdom. So if, somebody saying Proverbs 6:6 kind of messes you up, think of it this way. This is a book that the wisest man of all time penned. And he just left there for us to basically take in and learn more about his wisdom. But here's my question. Well, actually, I'm not going to ask the question yet. I'm going to ask it at the top of the hour. And this is for mothers, for the person who wants to win this prize that I have. I'll talk more about this prize in a moment, okay? And you'll have to call in to do so. But here's the piece that really got me. Like right away, my mind goes to Proverbs 6:6, right? Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways. And my mind goes there. And I'm like, yo, man, it's these, the fact that these ants rebuilt these 3 anthills so quickly. And then here's the thing, and made them better. Like, it's like, okay, maybe I need to go to the ant and consider her ways. Like, just consider the ways of the ant. And today's topic is life lessons from nature. Because I've said this before in a previous show. The earth has a particular vibration. It has a certain frequency during different seasons. And this is also one of the reasons why, for those of you who heard this show, I also shared that in terms of how I think about the goal setting process, all of that, like I'm going to shift it. Because the vibration is different this time of year in spring. Like this is when we should begin new things because everything else is beginning. Even the ants themselves, they get this, right? So like the first lesson that we can take away is that you build in the spring, right? You build in the spring. Like if you just look at the ant themselves, right? I imagine the ant's not setting goals in the new year. Right? They're still underneath the ground doing what it is that they do, right? But what they're doing is they're eating off the provisions that they gathered all summer long and doing harvest. We'll get to that. But they're living off the work they did, and then they don't start building until spring. Like, that's the first piece. Like, you can say, well, that's the first lesson right there. Real simple lesson. We get it. Okay. I want to go back. I want to fully explain this whole thing around frequency since I put it in a space. All right. This whole thing around frequency, vibration, and energy. Because I've really been pushing this, I would say over the last 6 months or so. Like this idea of frequency, vibration, and energy. So the first lesson that I really got from the ant was that they pay attention to the earth's vibration and frequency. Like, they build in the spring. And then when they start building, they don't stop. Like, and that's the biggest piece I got. They're not stopping. Oh, the water washes away parts of what they built, parts of the structure. They don't stop. They keep going. And I don't want to get ahead of myself here, so I'm just kind of, give me 1 second. Let's do this. Let's go to Proverbs 6 and just read that portion real quick. All right. So, go to the ant, thou sluggard. Now, one of the things I want to do is define what a sluggard is, because I think all too often what happens when we're learning or reading, comprehending, we'll read something and immediately apply it to other people. So this is how I can imagine this is how it goes when most of us read this particular passage, right? We go to the ant, thou sluggard, right? And we think, oh, the sluggards. Ooh. Thank God I'm not a sluggard, right? Well, hold on. Let's make sure. And this is, I told my wife yesterday, I said, I think some folks going to be mad at me. But I'm just going to read definitions to you. All right? I didn't say it. The dictionary said it. All right? I'm going to read some definitions to you about how a sluggard is defined. All right, so here we go. Sluggard. A person who is habitually inactive or lazy. Now, here's the thing. Most of us will stick to the lazy part. Well, I ain't lazy. I get up. I go to work every day. Okay. Well, are you inactive? Let's not just skip over that one. And I want to lay this out in a different way. I want to lay this out through the lens of what I call the 4 pillars of life. Okay? Now, the 4 pillars of life are, number 1, your health and well-being. Number 2, your relationships. Number 3, your work and your money. And number 4, your purpose and your spirituality. So when I'm looking at these definitions, I want you to think through each of these categories. Because what happens for us as human beings, like transformation, does not take place if there's no self-awareness. Like, you can't transform any part of your life if there's no self-awareness. And so what's important is that we gather a new level of self-awareness so that we can actually transform or shift or change whatever it is that we need to change and transform in our lives. And I'm afraid that what happens all too often is we hear simple, like, cliche phrases and passages like, go to the ant, thou sluggard, and we completely take ourselves out of the mix. That ain't me. I'm not a sluggard. And if we really begin to take like a look, like if we put the magnifying glass on our lives, we might actually find something different. We might actually see that in certain aspects of life, in certain areas of our lives, we have become sluggards. Like, maybe it's just in my health and well-being. I have been physically inactive. Like, okay. And this is how I think about things, right? When I was processing the anthill and all this went down, and then I thought about Proverbs 6, I was like, man, where am I not being like the ant in my life? Okay, what about my health and well-being? What about my relationships? Like some of us wonder why we don't have a tight circle, but we are inactive in terms of reaching out and communicating with and touching the people in our lives until we need something, right? So in that area of life, you may be a sluggard, right? In relationships. You know, work, okay, I go to work, Linnell. Okay, what about money though? Like, are you active? And when I say this, like, I want to be very clear because I'm not talking about spending. Right? Be like, well, I'm active with my money. I'm talking about building. Are you actively building financially? Like, again, because you may be a sluggard financially. And what is Solomon saying? What is King Solomon, the wisest man in the world, saying? Go to the ant and consider its ways. Not just in one aspect of life, but in every aspect that comes to mind. Oh, what about within your purpose? Are you inactive there? But let's take it a bit further, right? Because this might not fully reach everyone, because someone may say, well, you know, what does inactive actually mean? Well, inactive means to be sedentary or passive. Ooh, did that just hit something? Like, are you passive in your spiritual life? See, I said it, didn't I? Like, because, you know, we're like, I'm not a sluggard. Well, let's like we start to break it down. I even looked up the etymology of the word. I'm like, what is this? Because I want to know for me. Like, and by the way, like, this is something that's been brewing for the last 3 months or so. Like, you know, when we had that first little break in March, like, all this went down and I did the work. I was like, okay, let me look this up. What does this mean? Am I a sluggard? Okay, what does sluggard mean? What does inactive mean? Sedentary or passive? Like, where am I passive? Am I passive with my health? Like, I'm clear that there's an opportunity for me to go to a new level, a different level in my life in terms of my health and well-being. Like, it's very clear that there's opportunity there. Am I actively doing something about my health, or am I just passive? Because then what that might mean is that in the area of health and well-being, I'm a sluggard. And see, that don't sound good though. Right? And by the way, King Solomon, when he wrote Proverbs, he used the word sluggard 12 times. Like, this was his go-to. Like, he used it 12 times. Like, hey, if you're a sluggard, you might want to reconsider X, Y, and Z. 12 times. So, am I passive? Am I passive financially? In my experience as a coach, the majority of people, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, both one-on-one and group formats and in large formats, whether they used to be Slayer Goals members, whatever. I've worked with hundreds of people, and I have thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of coaching and working with people. And one of the things that creeps to the top, almost last, is not first, is most people I've worked with have very little financial clarity. Like, very little financial clarity. Why? Because when it comes to our money, we're passive. And think about the impact that money has on our lives. And I'm willing to be passive there. If I'm willing to be passive financially, it's likely I'm passive about everywhere else in my life. You know, they say, you know, they call people go-getters. I think a lot of us, we'll hustle hard, we'll work hard, and then everything that we earned, think about how hard you work, only to be passive with the earnings. Like, would the ant do that? Nah. Inactive also means sluggish and indolent. Sluggish and indolent. Well, we'll come back to indolent because I know somebody's like, well, what does that mean? We'll come back to that. But let's look at sedentary first. And what I'm doing is I'm just walking down so we can begin to see, because for me, as I'm going through this, I'm like, man, there's always a gap. Like if you're listening to this right now and like you haven't identified a gap yet, consider that you might not be practicing self-awareness. Because I just look at it for myself and I'm like, oh man, there's gaps. There are certain areas in my life that I need to close the gap on, because when I look at the ants in my driveway, they doing better than me. And that's a problem, because they living on my property and they doing better than me. I got a problem with that. Like they seem to have it figured out. They got it figured out. I want to get where they are. I want to learn from them. Sedentary. Sedentary is characterized by a sitting posture. Like, now think about this. Many of us, when we go to work, we are sedentary. All we do is we sit there all day. We sit there all day. The other definition, the second definition for sedentary, is accustomed to sitting or resting a great deal, or someone that takes to very little exercise. I said, I didn't, I'm just reading the definitions as I see them. Right? So then if I back this up, they say, you know, sedentary came from inactive. Inactive came from the definition of sluggard. That means that if I'm sedentary, I'm a sluggard. I mean, this right here, what I'm doing, I learned like in the 9th or 10th grade, right? Well, how you take the meanings of words and you apply it to the definition of a word so that you fully understand the meaning of the word. See, because here's the thing. I imagine many of us have read these words, sluggard, and we just skip right past it. Like, we might even say a prayer for the sluggards. Lord, help them, Jesus. Help them. We don't even apply it to ourselves. We don't even look deeply into it to see, well, hold on, where might I be doing this? Like, am I sitting around all day? Am I given to very little exercise? Well, Anel, you don't understand. You're not a woman and you don't have a perm. You don't even understand what it costs for me to do my hair, only go sweat it out. It's easy for you to say. Yeah, true. Then I would say, well, you may want to look at getting that perm, my sister, putting those chemicals on your hair. Well, Anel, I'm natural. I don't have a perm, and it's tough to keep this natural hair straight. I'm like, so you're more given to your vanity than you are to the words of the Creator. Because that's all I can take from that. And it's King Solomon that said, all is vanity. So I guess he knew already. So sedentary is I'm sitting a lot. I'm sitting around. I'm in a sitting posture most of the day. Like, just think about it, right? And most of us, we go to work, what do? We sit. And I'm given to very little exercise. I don't exercise. But hold on, wait a second. When we looked at the definition of inactive, it also said indolent, right? And we got inactive, if you're just joining us, from the definition of sluggard. Sluggard is someone that is habitually inactive. All right, so when we look at indolent, that comes from this definition of inactive. Indolence says having or showing a disposition to avoid exertion. When is the last time you had to catch your breath? I'm talking about purposely, not because you walked up some steps. I'm talking about like you pushed yourself till you couldn't go anymore. Like, because an indolent person won't do that. I imagine the ant. You know, you see an ant, very, very seldom do you see an ant sitting. Very seldom do you see an ant just like in one spot. Think about it. Like in one spot. Like when you see an ant, most of the time they're moving. And then some of us, you done tried to kill an ant, right? Bah, 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 you know, and you're like, why I keep missing him? Because he's like, the ant is like moving, you know. It's in motion, always in motion. And I would imagine that the ant will go to exertion, right? In the evening, the sun goes down, the ant crawls back underground and goes, whew, what a day, right? Probably some antenna action. Maybe that's how they communicate with each other. What a day. What a day. But the work is done. Many of us, when's the last time, like you just, like you actually did something to exertion? Like you pushed yourself to exertion on purpose. How far can I go? How much can I do? How big can I build? Here is one of the reasons many of us are in the place that we are in. Now, and I said it before, like in our community, like many of us are married to the struggle. And like when we study the ant, what I don't see, what I didn't learn is that ants are like, they for the struggle. There's no struggle. Even when winter comes, ain't no struggle. They don't struggle. Ain't no, you know what I'm saying? All the water washed away our anthill. Ain't no struggle. We build it back. Right? We got what we need. We got the relationships. Oh, something else we're going to learn about ants in the second hour. They got the relationships. You follow, oh, this is too heavy. My brothers and sisters show up to help me carry it. You ever seen 3 or 4 ants carrying a potato chip or something? Y'all ever seen that before? Right? You ever notice that, you know, one ain't pulling the other way? You know, trying to take it from them. They all like, yo, it's enough chip to go around. Relationships, collaboration. Oh, let me tell you something. Our community, we can, like, if we just studied the ant community, everything would shift and change. Life lessons from nature. Life lessons from nature, man. And it's one of those things, like I said, I can't take credit for it because I saw the anthills. I washed away the anthills. 24 to 48 hours later, I saw them back. The Creator dropped it in my spirit. He said, you need to go to the ant, you sluggard. I said, me? Me? I'm not a sluggard. Go look it up. That's where I got all this from. Go look it up. I went and looked it up, and that's what I just read to you all. Like I said, don't get mad at me. It's just the definitions in the dictionary. And to be indolent, having or showing a disposition that avoids exertion. I don't want to get tired. I've been doing this series on Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go there now, at Linnell Harris. I've been doing this series on work. And one of the things I talk about is why it's necessary, no matter who you work for, that you give 100%. Because you're teaching yourself something. All too often I have people who are asking, Linnell, how did you make the transition from corporate America to entrepreneurship? How is it that you were successful so quickly? Because when I was in corporate America, I gave 100%. I exerted myself. And then what happened is that same way of being that I had for someone else, I brought over into my company. Like, a lot of us think, man, this is like, it's like an engine. You just start it up. Human beings don't operate that way. If you're not practiced in working hard, you will leave corporate America and work for yourself and exhibit the exact same behaviors in your business that you exhibited there. You don't believe me? Try it. And here's the thing. You don't got to admit it. It's just going to hit your psyche one day like, yeah, he said it. Yeah, he said it. And here's the thing, the holy books all say the same thing, like you give 100% no matter what you do. You give 100% no matter what you do. You give 100%. The Quran, the Bible, you go down, even texts that you find for what's the other religions? Hinduism, etc. Like Buddhism, almost all of those texts, when it refers to work, it says you give 100%. But what we'll do as human beings, we'll excuse ourselves. My boss ain't no good, so, I ain't about to. All the time saying, but I'm a good Christian. It's simple things, man. It's very simple things. I'm a good Muslim. Very simple things. I honor the Buddha. Do you really? Right? Do you really? I want to read Proverbs 6. I haven't done that yet. So I'm going to read both versions too, the King James and the NIV. So go to the ant, thou sluggard. Right? That's the piece that we skip over. We're like, well, I'm not a sluggard, so I don't have to go to the ant. Well, we identified that if we look at all four pillars, there's probably opportunity for all of us, right? So we should go to the ant. We identified that in the first hour. We should go to the ant and consider her ways. And be wise is what it says. And be wise. All right? And I'm seeking wisdom. I believe those of you who listen seek wisdom. And so we go to the ant. Now, 7, which has no guide, overseer, or ruler. She provideth her meat in the summer and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? And think about this, right? Because sometimes we think about sleep in a matter of actual sleeping, right? And one of the things we know about many of the holy texts is they're symbolic. And so there's symbolism. And typically, when the Bible in particular talks about sleep, it's talking about awareness, right? So how long will you lack awareness is another way to say that. How long will you lack awareness, sluggard, right? Now, what's crazy about this is how long will you lack awareness, oh sluggard? A lot of us who lack awareness would say, well, I got awareness. They ain't talking about me. Well, we identified what the sluggard was because of that. And when wilt thou arise out of your lack of awareness, your sleep? When will you arise out of your sleep? Yet, a little lack of awareness, or a little sleep, right? Or a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep, and so shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. Now, I want to read the NIV version of that last verse so we really get it. Because, I'm thinking about our community. Like, I'm thinking about our community. Somebody said, well, there's an ant queen. Now, let's understand, this is why you got to study the ant. There is an ant queen. The ant queen is who gives birth to the ants, and they reverence her. However, she's not an overseer or ruler. And so keep that in mind. Okay, the ants move according to how they move, not based on orders. All right. All right, let's go to the NIV version. I'm going to start at verse, well, let's go through it again, right? Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in the summer and gather its food at harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come on you like a thief, right? You don't see a thief. And scarcity like an armed man. Like an armed man. What is this saying? If I look at this, the words of the wisest man of all time, and I evaluate where we are as a community, I think it would be safe to say, right, because when we had this conversation some weeks ago about the financial projections for the African American community, and it doesn't look good. Hold on, no, I talked about that. And I also talked about it at Attorney Ernest Fenton's book signing. I talked about it at length at his book signing, and then I covered it briefly the next day on the show. But there's an article that basically talked about the projection for African American wealth being 0 by 2053. I believe that's the right year, by 2053. And I want to correlate these last two verses to that article. A little sleep, a little slumber. Like, just ask yourself right now, as a community, can we afford to sleep? Justin, as a community, can we afford to sleep? As a community, can we afford to have big blind spots where we're not aware of ourselves, where we're not aware of our community? Can we afford that? Like, we can't afford that. But a little sleep, a little lack of awareness, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. And this is what happens, right? We're like, well, I work so hard. Fridays are the fun day. We're like, hey, I worked all week. Why am I working on Saturday? Why, what am I? And it's like, but winter's coming. My life motto is love hard, work hard, play harder. There's a season for everything. There's a season for everything. Many of us, we don't even know what it's like to play hard because we don't work hard. We don't have real seasons of play. Your best play is Netflix. Right? You can't get up and get on the plane and go play somewhere because you can't afford to get on the plane and go play somewhere. And the reason you can't afford to play somewhere is because your play is mediocre. Like, we're addicted to mediocre play. Like, just let that sit in. Like, you're not even playing full out in your life. It's mediocre play. I'm sorry, but going to a club and getting drunk is not play to me. Like, that's addiction. Like, you're trying to cloud something out. You didn't play. You didn't play. And if it is your play, it's mediocre. Any play that leaves you feeling less than 100% the next day is mediocre. That's mediocre play. So we don't even play hard for real. Like somebody say, Linnell, how do you play hard? Playing hard to me is being in the pool with my son and daughter where we splash until we can't splash no more. Like being in the pool in a tropical climate. It's running back and forth into the ocean with my son until we just tired. We can't do it no more. We just tired now. Let's go get something good to eat. Like, that's playing hard. Playing hard for me is scuba diving in an ocean or a sea where most people will never be. That's playing hard to me. Like, playing hard to me is being in places in the world that many people never have the opportunity to witness or see. Like trekking with gorillas, being on safari. Like, that's playing hard. And here's the thing. All of us have the potential and possibility to play like that. What comes with it is work. And you got to be doing the right work. Purpose work. We got the potential. Many of us never realize that potential. But here's the thing. Newton's first law of motion states that an object in motion tends to remain in motion. This is why the rich get richer, right? An object that's headed up with momentum tends to continue to head up with momentum, right? And an object at rest, if you're stagnant, you're sedentary, tends to remain at rest, right? This is Newton's first law of motion. This is why I want to be in motion. This is why I like to stay in action. Because when you're in action, it ain't hard. You get where I'm going? Let me give you an example of what I mean, real life. I got up 5 a.m. Friday, went to the gym, left the gym, went to the office, did a training for a corporate entity, worked with a couple of clients. After I worked with a couple of clients, my wife came, picked me up from the office. We went to my son's school, picked him up from school together, all went home. When I got home, there was work to do in the yard. Now, this is what happens for most of us. Oh, well, I done did too much already. I done did too much already. I'm not trying to do all that. So then we don't do anything, right? Let a little folding of the hands, a little slumber, right? I went out and worked in the yard. Let's make it happen. It's easier for me to go work in the yard and make things happen when I've already been working. I'm in motion. And that's all I'm saying. I'm in motion. So this is what I'm referring to, you all, in terms of staying in motion. Lesson number 2 is about how the ant cares for its young. The ant puts particular care into how it looks after its young. It understands the value of youth, but it also understands the frailty, the delicacy of youth. And so these are ants, man. The ant is very thoughtful about what the young ant is exposed to. You ever notice that when you do come across an ant, you all, very seldom do you come across baby ants? You ever notice that? Like the ant you crushing under your foot, if you see it, that's an adult. Right? The adult is out. The adult has exposure. But you're not taking out the younger generation. Let's be clear. You're not taking out the younger generation of ants. Like, they gonna be there. Anybody ever had an ant problem in their house? Right? That goes to lesson number 3, really. Let's just stick with 2 for a second. But you don't see young ants just moving around. Right? You just don't see young ants out in the street. You know what I'm saying? You definitely don't see young ants at nighttime. Where's their mama? Where's their father? Just kind of walking the street. You don't see young ants. Young ants are down being protected. Young ants, their psychology, their mind is being molded properly for the work that's to come later in the future. You ever notice that you also don't have young ants that are rebelling and acting out? The reason why is because there's so much attention given to them when they're young that by the time they come of age as adults, they go out into the real world, they know their role. They know their role. They know how to socialize. They know how to take on these elements of the ant. Lesson number 3. The ant is collaborative. It operates like the entire community operates as one. And I was given the example of how the ant, like, you see ants pulling a chip. You don't see one ant trying to break off part of it and go the other way. Like, this is for everybody. Like, they have a communal system. Now, somebody's probably thinking, well, Linnell, that's socialism. Something's been in my spirit for a while. I'm going to share it. As a community, we've got to do a better job of understanding the value that each individual in the community brings. Like, and I can't know all of you, right? That's not possible. But I can know some of you. And I can know the individuals that bring a certain level of value to me in whatever it is that their purpose, whatever their life's purpose may be, right? And there may come a time where these dollars, I did the show on money, right? This currency may not have value. What will become of us? I'm going to tell you, for certain strong communities, what's going to happen. They're just not going to trade currency anymore. They're going to barter. They're going to say, well, you know what, Ade, I can't pay you anymore, right? But what do you need? How can I provide what you need so you can continue to provide this service for me, right? And because we understand the value, I understand the value of what Ade brings. I understand the value of what Justin brings. We can barter in a way where things keep moving, right? In our community, can we do the same? Like, if that dollar lost value, do we respect one another? Can we collaborate in a way where we would still eat? We would still have a place to sleep. We still, and I'm going to tell you something, we're not there right now. Because if it meant pumping gas or getting gas, like, I think there's one African-American owned gas station in the Chicago metro area. One. So then that's that, right? I mean, we ain't going to be able to move around because, these people who we're patronizing, you think they're going to barter with you? These folks who set up shop in our communities, but, it's okay to always give your money, you give your money to them. You think they're going to barter with you? You got relationships with them like that? And I think we forget the importance of community and collaboration. Go to the ant, consider her ways, and be wise. Be wise. If you think you're so cold that you can operate alone, you are sadly mistaken. I would say it's actually a foolish sentiment. Go to the ant and be wise. We got to get to a point where we can carry a pot of gold together in the same direction without anybody wondering if somebody's going to break off a piece of the pie and go somewhere else. We got to get to a point where we can operate that way. The other thing that comes up for me is that the ant operates with honor. With honor. And I believe that in business, we're supposed to dot the I's and cross the T's, but can it get to a point with certain brothers and sisters where I can just shake a hand? Like, can it get there? I can just shake your hand and give you 30% up front. Like, can we get there? Here you go, brother. And know that it's going to be handled. Know that it's going to be done. And by the way, this is something I've done myself. Like, if you hire me as your coach, now corporate America is different, right? They sign contracts. But on a personal level, if you hire me, Linnell, I want you to coach me. I will not send you a contract. I'm doing it based on the commitment of your word. This is how long we go. This is what we discussed as a price. And this is the promise you made to pay, the commitment of your word to pay. And the reason I do that is because I understand that if I coach you, everything that you say you're going to do, if you don't believe that and if you don't do it, the coaching doesn't work, starting with the initial agreement. Lesson number 3, collaboration. Can we collaborate? Can we powerfully collaborate with one another? Here's lesson number 4. The ant never gives up. It will not give up. It will not give up. It will keep going. It will keep pushing. It will keep playing. It will, like, there is no stopping. And I learned that from when knocking down the anthill 48 hours is back up. Since then, the sprinklers come up, you know what I'm saying? I go check out the anthill. Everything's washed away. They didn't move locations. They just keep building in the same spot. This is our spot. This is our home. This is what we do. I thought to myself when I saw that, I said, man, if I lost everything I had, everything that my wife and I have built, if we lost it for whatever reason, one, are we so attached that the emotional punch from the loss completely takes us out? Like, that's the first piece. Like, how attached am I? Like, how emotionally attached am I to things? That's the first piece. But then the second piece is, once I took the hit, how long would it take me to start the rebuilding process? And I just want you to think about the reasons we give up, some of us. The reasons we throw in the towel. The reasons we break our commitments. The reasons why we just abandon the goal. Whether it's in our health, again, we talked about the 4 pillars of life in terms of where may I be showing up like a sluggard? Like, have I completely quit and abandoned my health and well-being? Oh, well, I just can't seem to eat right, so this is what it is. The ant would never give up. What about certain relationships? And I'm not talking about toxic relationships. Many of us are married, and the first sign of trouble, we like, Some of the sisters, let me tell you something. I've had a number of sisters call me about their husbands saying, I need coaching because I can't do this. I'm about to change my life. I'm leaving this man. And then when I inquire deeply about what's going on, like, this ain't divorce material. Like, you're not going through divorce. We're so fast to quit. It's not divorce material. Oh, what did he cheat on you? Did he disrespect you? Did he put his hands on you? Well, no, he just ain't showing up the way I need him to show up. And you're quitting? Are you showing up the way he need? Are you looking at yourself? And then one of the major reasons is because the sisters have taken a masculine role. Like, you've stolen you forced the masculine role out of his hands, and then you don't want him no more because you pushed him into a feminine role. I'm not attracted to that. And what it takes is actually saying, let me allow you to be the man. Putting down your pride, letting him be who you were attracted to in the first place. And when I tell you I've gotten call after call after call after call from sisters who are like, I can't do this, I need coaching. Giving up. I'm not talking about men that are beating them, men that are cheating. And let me say this to the sisters. Do you all realize how hard it is to find a man? Like, the probability of finding a certain type of man? And you're giving up, but we give up in relationship. Financially, many of us have relegated ourselves to a job or a career that is beneath us. We've just thrown in the towel, given up. We've given up on our purpose. Well, I'm sure the Lord created me for a reason. I'm sure the Creator has me here, but it's just so hard. It's so hard. And I believe I know my purpose, but just, you've given up. That's why, man, I looked at this. I said, man, go to the ant. Like that, go to the ant. And when we think about the seemingly insignificant insect and its ability to do as it's designed, and because it does as it is designed, it thrives. Here's the one thing about the ant. Every time winter comes, the ant is prepared. And guess what? Winter always comes. Winter always comes. And every time winter comes, the ant is ready. When you look at Aesop's fable, the grasshopper and the ant, here's how the fable ends. I think we sleep on this. Here's how the fable ends. The grasshopper is playing his fiddle and dancing. At one part of the fable, he's dancing and hopping around, and he lands and disperses the ant's food, like he was piling up his food outside the house. Ant says, man, why are you always dancing? Why are you always playing? He's like, oh, it's so beautiful outside. It's such a wonderful time to play and dance. Can I play you a song while you work? This is the grasshopper, right? Then the snow starts to fall. The ground starts to freeze over. The grasshopper comes, is shivering. It's cold and knocks on the ant's door. It says, Ant, can I play you a song for some food? Guess what the ant says? Sure, I'll employ you. Uh-oh. That's why some of us got jobs. Winter comes in our business, and we didn't put nothing up. And guess what? You call me? Sure, I'll employ you. Play me a song on your fiddle. Right? Play me a song on your fiddle of my choosing while the ant was resting. Play me a song that I can enjoy. Right? Ant let the grasshopper in. Now the grasshopper has to play for food. That ain't fun, is it? All that dancing and hopping around all summer. Now it's got to play for food. And this is why we don't like our jobs, because you're being forced to play tunes you don't want to play. But if we put up for the winter, you could walk out on that toxic boss. Well, because winter is coming. Well, I love my boss. Thank God I'm in a good place. Winter is coming. Boss might not always be there. Are you ready? You can be like, hey, I don't know who you talking to, but you can't talk to me like that. Right? You can set a whole, like you got money in the bank, you ready for winter? You can set a whole new, you ain't talking to me like that. I'm ready for winter. You ain't gonna force me to play just any tune. Because winter will come. Lesson number 5. Ants are organized. They're meticulous. They know where everything's at. Everything has a place. Everything has a proper order. And what I love about the ant, like they just move with nature, man. Look at it, like how the Creator organized everything. The sun, the moon, the stars. How the sun moons, the lunar cycles, everything is organized. It amazes me how easy it is to talk about being God-like or to point your finger at someone who you say isn't when your closet's dirty, filthy. Open the door, all kinds of things come out. Some of us, it's not even a closet, it's the whole house. They say cleanliness is next to godliness, right? So if you're so spiritual, how can you be dirty? Again, I mean, we just a little slumber, a little folding of the hands, right? Number 6, ants know how to fight. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Hey, see, this is the thing, right? This is Solomon talking. Like, go to the ant. Consider her ways and be wise. Ants are very protective, man. They know how to fight. Ant can get down. I'm talking to the brothers now. Like, they will fight to the death to protect their homes and the young from enemies. And yes, they have enemies. They're underground. All kinds of things underground. All kinds of things will poke their heads into their tunnels. And guess what? They weren't getting ready. They are ready. They ready. They ready. Soldiers to the call, right? Let's go. Like, you go ahead and be the one that poke your head in a little ant tunnel. If you want to, you're going to cause some ruckus. The ants are ready. The ants are ready. Are you ready? Like, can you take a stand and protect your family in a way where they could get a head start? Or has it been a while since you exerted yourself? Uh-oh. See, some folks, man, you know, you can size them up. Be like, I'll take that brother out. He bigger, he's stronger. He going to have to chase me and dance around, right? You know, then when I see him go, that's when I go in. Boop. Because you ain't exerted yourself, bro. You ain't pushed yourself. Number 7. Every ant has a purpose. Oh, you knew I was going there. You had to know it was going to happen. Every ant has a purpose. Every ant moves in alignment with their purpose. I might get in trouble, but you don't have the worker ant identifying as a soldier ant. Man, right? Hey, everybody has a purpose. Every ant that's the worker ant. That's the teaching ant for the young. That's the soldier ant, right? And they operate within their purpose. And guess what? Not one ant has the job of sitting around and watching other ants. Not one, right? They all are diligently moving in alignment with their purpose. Now get this. According to my research, if an ant decides to stop working and starts watching, after a certain amount of time, the other ants will kill it. The other ants will kill it. These young boys in these houses. Hey, man. These young men in these homes, you like, we are ruining. They gotta earn. Like, they gotta earn. That's, man, my wife come home with toys. My son's 5 years old. I'm already on it. She come home with toys. Did he earn that? Did he earn that? Why? Because it's my intention to raise a man, to raise a king, right? And we give stuff away. We're just giving away. Like, oh, here you go. In the ant kingdom, somebody just sitting around, they don't live to eat the provisions. You got to go. You got to go. Oh, you don't work in my house? You got to go. The streets might kill him. Hey, well, if the ants, they would just kill him in the house. Okay? The ants, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Man, we don't got to go far to figure these things out. All of nature has a cycle. All of nature has a way of being. And the reason we're not thriving is because we are operating outside of the laws of nature. You want to thrive? You want to win? All you have to do is just fall in line. Every ant has a purpose. This morning, what's your purpose? What's your calling? What is the work that you should be doing? How are you protecting your young? Man, I'm thinking about like what's happening right now in the world, what's going on right now. If we aren't diligent with our young people, we will lose them all. This wave ain't playing. Like what's happening right now, this foolishness that you see, it don't even make sense, right? But and you all know what I'm talking about. It don't even make sense, but if you're not careful, it'll come in your house. Protect your young. Be in alignment with your purpose. A young person should always be in activity, right? Always in action, always moving. How are you living? Are you living in alignment with one of the most insignificant creatures on the planet, right? The ant. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.